As the Democrat Party collapses, Republicans are surging at the right time. What is up, people of the internet? It is me, Real American, back in with a new video, and today we had to talk about the 2024 presidential election because it appears that Donald Trump and the Republican Party are surging at the right time. Yeah, that's right. Despite what some Democrats may claim about the current state of the race, they are in deep trouble. Now, I am not saying that this means that Trump will win every single state in a landslide. I am not saying that at all. We cannot get complacent. But at some point, these numbers get so bad for Democrats that you cannot ignore it anymore. I mean, look at this. We have early voting numbers out of Nevada. You know, a state that more than likely will be 50-50. It's going to be very close. Look at this. Back in 2020, on the first day of early voting, Democrats led by roughly 40,000 votes. Just for context, Biden won the state of Nevada by roughly 34,000 votes. So his entire margin of victory came from early voting. Well, on the first day of early voting this year, Democrats are up by not even 2,000 votes. That's not a misquote, not 20,000, not 30,000, not even 10,000. No, not even 2,000 votes. That's it. On the same day of early voting compared to 2020, Democrats have dropped by roughly 38,000 votes. Which again, that's basically Biden's entire margin of victory in Nevada. This is horrific for Democrats, and even if you were to look at just early voting in Clark County, which is Las Vegas, by some miracle, it gets even worse for Democrats. Look at this. Back in 2020, on the first day of early voting in Clark County, which that's Las Vegas, Las Vegas decides elections in Nevada. Look at this. In 2020, the mail-in votes was roughly D plus 37. In 2024, it's only D plus 16. That's a 20-point shift in mail-in votes. In-person voting, even worse. Back in 2020, it was D plus 7. Now, R plus 19. A 26-point shift in in-person voting. This is a huge shift towards Republicans in just 4 years. Hell, compared to 2022, Democrats led mail-in votes by 23 points. In-person voting, Republicans won by 8. Both of them shifted 7 to 10 points Republican in just 2 years. If Clark County's early vote is shifting this Republican, Kamala Harris is not only screwed in Nevada, there's a good chance, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but there's a chance that Trump could actually flip Clark County. I mean, this is such a big shift that it's entirely possible that if Democrats don't pick it up, Clark County could flip. I'm not saying that, by the way, as an official prediction. I still think at the end of the day, Clark County, as of now, more than likely votes for Harris by a couple of points. But the problem for Harris is, well, she has to win Clark County by, like, at the bare minimum, 5-6 points. If it's within 5 points, within 3, within 2, I don't see how she wins Nevada. Unless something crazy happens in Reno, which I guess is possible, but it's not just Clark County that's having this surge in early voting for Republicans. It's everywhere. I mean, this is bad for Democrats. I mean, this is just horrific. Not just bad, it is atrocious. There's no way you could say these numbers are good for Democrats because it's not just one county that shifted heavily Republican. It's the entire state, including Clark County, the county that will decide who wins Nevada. But fine, Nevada's only one state. It's really bad for Democrats, but okay, it's only Nevada. It's not the end of the world. Well, we have early voting data out of Georgia, and it's looking bad for Democrats. Look at this. Early voting in Georgia right now is just below 60% white. Compare that to 2022 and 2020. That is way more white, way less African American. And it's not just white voters in Fulton County voting, which for those that don't know, Fulton County is just Atlanta. But point is, it's not them showing up and voting. No, it's voters in the northern part of the state. You know, the most Republican part of Georgia. Yeah, they're having the biggest increase in early voting compared to Fulton, compared to DeKalb, Cobb, Gwinnett, etc. That is not good for Democrats because who do you think these people are voting for? These people that live in rural Georgia and these counties vote like 95% Republican. Who do you think these people are voting for? More than likely, Trump. And even then, early voting in the Democrat parts of Georgia, it is awful. It's way down, which should tell you everything. The Republican parts of the state, they're voting. The Democrat parts of Georgia, they're not. That is awful. We're talking about DEFCON 1 for Democrats, not just in Nevada, but also in Georgia. But fine. It could also be a fluke because these voters technically could be Democrats, even though it's so unlikely that I just don't think it's really possible that turnout's this bad in Atlanta, but it's way up in the rest of the state, but that's somehow good news for Dems. I highly doubt that's the case, but fine. It could be a fluke. Well, let's keep going. Let's look at other states like Virginia. This is not a swing state, at least on paper. It should not be a swing state. It is a Democrat-leaning state. And we've been talking about Virginia quite a bit because something's happening here. It is becoming apparent that Democrats have a big problem in Virginia. Look at this. Early voting in the Commonwealth got even more Republican. Republicans are at 41% of the early vote. Compare that to 2021, 2022, 2023. Republicans, they were in the mid to high 30s. They were not at 41%. Democrats, they were at 63, 63, 61%. They weren't at 58% like they are now. I mean, this is awful. And you look at what Christian Hines says here, and for those that don't know, Christian Hines is very good at this. This is like he's an expert on Virginia. And look what he says here. What can I say? We're witnessing the collapse of the Democrat Party's decisive edge in early voting, which they've held for years. We've reached the point where if Trump carried Election Day by the same margin Glenn Youngkin did in 2021, he would win Virginia outright. Yeah, this is not a misquote, this is not a typo. We're at a point now in early voting where if Trump wins the Election Day vote by the same margin as Youngkin did back in 21, Trump would carry Virginia. We're not talking about North Carolina, Georgia, Pennsylvania. We're talking about Virginia. Guys, if Virginia flips, there is no way you could say that Harris is going to win. At that point, you're not even talking about a close race. You're talking about an electoral landslide for Trump. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm not predicting that Trump is going to flip Virginia, win Minnesota, make New Jersey within 5. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if Trump is this close to not just, barely losing Virginia, but just outright wins Virginia, he's going to win. And he's probably winning in a landslide, at least in the modern terms. There's no way Trump gets like 450 electoral votes. That's not going to happen. But there's a good chance that if he flips a state like Virginia, maybe he pulls off the upset in, say, Minnesota, New Mexico, New Hampshire, Maine. It could add up to roughly 330, 340, maybe 350. I'm not predicting that, but you begin to look at the map and you realize quickly that if Trump is doing this much better in Nevada, we're talking about a 30-point shift in Clark County. If he's doing that much better there, if he's doing much better in Georgia, places like Virginia, if early voting's shifting this Republican, I mean, Democrats are in deep trouble. And I understand people are going to say, but people are going to vote on Election Day. I get that, but do you really think that Democrats are going to win the Election Day vote? Do you really believe that? Does anyone really think that's going to happen? It might be closer compared to, say, 2020 or even 2022, because Republicans they're voting more early. I get that, but a 1-point shift on Election Day is not enough to explain this big of a shift in early voting. But even then, is there really a guarantee that the Election Day vote's going to shift Democrat at all? I know that sounds crazy because if the Election Day vote doesn't shift and in fact shifts Republican, all bets are off the table. You're talking about Trump winning Virginia, winning Minnesota, winning everything at that point. He's sweeping every state. So it sounds crazy to say that maybe the Election Day vote just doesn't move. But when you look at who's actually voting, there's a chance that, yeah, the Election Day vote could stay roughly the same or even shift slightly Republican. because you look at who's actually voting in, say, Virginia, and it becomes apparent that the Democrat Party, they're not getting low propensity voters out to vote. That means people that don't vote ever. They might have voted once 20 years ago, maybe. The Democrat Party, all they're doing is getting their high propensity voters out to vote. That means people that vote in every single election, no matter what, whether it's a midterm and off year, it doesn't matter. These people vote. Well, Democrats, all they're doing is just getting those voters, while Republicans, they're getting low propensity voters. That means people that may not even vote at all. People that they might have voted 20 years ago, but that's it. Low propensity voters, these people should not be voting, all right, or less likely to vote. Yet Republicans right now, on those that have not voted the last 4 elections, Republicans in Virginia hold a 2-to-1 advantage. Yeah, a 2-to-1 advantage with low propensity voters. That means these are not just election day voters voting early. These are people that have never voted. These are people that voted maybe for Reagan. Maybe. That's best case scenario. The Democrat Party, meanwhile, they're getting their high propensity people out to vote in droves, and that's it. Which is not good for Democrats because these people are going to vote no matter what. Whether it's early, whether it's on election day, they're going to vote. And I would argue this is the biggest problem for Democrats. They're getting their high propensity voters to vote early, while basically ignoring the low propensity vote. Republicans, meanwhile, they're actually getting their low propensity voters out to vote. Not just in Virginia, by the way. There's metrics in North Carolina to indicate, yeah, it's all over the place. It's not just in Georgia, not just Virginia. It's in every state. Republicans are getting their low propensity voters out to vote. While Democrats, they're relying more on their high propensity voter. People that vote in everything, no matter what. That's the problem for Democrats. In my opinion, that's the biggest problem. They're getting their high propensity people out to vote early. Which just means they're cannibalizing their election day vote. Yeah, all they're doing is just taking people that more than likely were going to vote on election day anyways, and make them vote early. While Democrats, or Republicans I should say, they're actually getting new people out to vote. People that more than likely would have never voted. And instead, they're actually voting early. So you know for sure, yeah, that person voted. Do you see the problem here? The problem for Democrats is they have to bank on a bunch of these low propensity Democrats to actually show up on election day. Is it possible? Maybe. But right now, I'm not seeing it. You cannot tell me with a straight face that these numbers, they look good for Democrats whatsoever. They don't. And early voting isn't everything. I get that, but even if you look at the polling, it's becoming apparent. Trump is surging. Look at the RCP average. Not even 3 weeks ago, it was roughly Harris +2. Harris +1, Harris +2.5, somewhere in that range. Right now, it's Harris +1. And that's with some big outliers from Morning Compost, Marist. If it wasn't for those polls from the middle of October, Trump would be leading the RCP average at the national level. Look at the recent polls from Atlas Intel, TIP. Yeah, TIP. Just a couple days ago, it was like Harris +3. Right now, or Harris +4 actually, Harris +3. Now Trump +2. In just a couple of weeks, it shifted 6 points Republican. Atlas Intel, they just dropped Trump +3. Rasmussen, Trump +2. Fox News, Trump +2. Even Emerson, they found Harris up by only 1. And all these polls that have Trump leading or a very small Harris lead, they were in the same time frame. The last week or so, the Democrats, they just imploded via early voting, via the polling. And for other states, it's the same thing. Arizona, just a couple days ago, Trump +1, maybe Trump +0.9. Now Trump +1.5. Georgia, Trump +1, Trump +2 now. Michigan, just a couple weeks ago, Harris +1, Harris +2. Now Trump +1. It keeps going. The last week or so, Trump and Republicans have surged in every metric, not just polling, but in early voting, voter registration, everything. And if this keeps up, I'm not trying to get people to be complacent, but we could be talking about a landslide. Listen, I've been trying to avoid that for a long time because I don't like to say we're for sure going to win 400 electoral votes. We're not going to. But if these trends continue, And we all know in the last week of October, that's when Trump has his biggest surge. Every year, his biggest surge happens in the last week of October. Every time. It's always like a 3 to 4 point shift. If the same thing happens, there's a good chance Trump could just sweep the map. And we would be done on election day at like 11 p.m. I'm not saying that's for sure going to happen, but how can anyone look at these trends and say it's actually good news for Democrats? For crying out loud, in Pennsylvania, Democrats were saying early voting was so good for them, but out of the blue, they're now saying, oh, the firewall doesn't matter. Yeah, Democrats for this entire cycle, they were coping about these firewalls in Pennsylvania, Georgia, North Carolina. And when they finally realized that, oh, not only is a firewall not there for us, but it's actually trending towards Republicans, out of the blue, they start saying, we don't need a firewall. We're going to win on election day. They are in deep trouble, and even Democrats know it. Now, I'm not saying Trump is 100% going to win, but if these trends continue, he will be the next president. He will win in a couple weeks. We'll see what happens, but you would much rather be the Trump campaign right now than Team Harris. Anyways, folks, thank you so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy this video, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, follow the social media accounts in the description down below, and of course, join the channel today. Godspeed to all of you.